Well, hello, everybody. Thank you for joining me. My name is Jeff Besson, and I will be your host for the next 30 minutes or so. I don't know if you've ever used GoToWebinar before. If not, congratulations, you're using GoToWebinar. There is a questions panel in the upper right-hand corner of your screen in the toolbar. It says questions. It's a perfectly named button because that's where you can ask questions. So what I'm going to ask you to do is at any point during the webinar, if you have any questions, type it into that box. I'll keep my eye on it and I will answer them on the fly. So I have reserved a little bit of time at the end to answer additional questions you may have, but feel free to ask them at any time. I know my stuff. This webinar is for you. So if you have any questions, I want to answer them as quickly as I can to make sure everything is clear. Um, uh, One other little caveat, this webinar is oriented towards those that have really no idea what Intuiface is or just a passing understanding. If you're very familiar with Intuiface, been using it, been heavily researching it, I really appreciate you joining me. That's great. Hopefully you can still learn something, but we will be discussing some of the basics to make sure that folks new to us understand what makes Intuiface so compelling for museums. So I thank you again. Please keep your eye on that questions panel, and we will get started. I do see a lot of, why is everybody, what does that mean? There's like a yellow triangle. I hope everybody can hear me okay. I would say, tell me if you can hear me or not, but if you can't hear me, you would know I'm saying that. Everybody good? I hope so. Tamara, thank you for letting me know. All right, let's get started. So why are we here? So I've been reaching out to, our company's been reaching out to you to promote the use of Intuiface for museums. Well, might make you wonder, why the heck would you use a product like Intuiface? Or more appropriately, why would these museums be using Intuiface? I would say that Intuiface might be a perfect fit. There might not be a better market for Intuiface than museums. We have museums all over the world of any size budget using Intuiface to create interactive digital exhibits, create it themselves. Usually you're outsourcing, if you even have the budget, or you're trying to make do with very simple pre-built template-y kind of stuff. But to create any visual using virtually any kind of interactivity, using your digital archives, your media, to educate, to inform, to motivate, is that even possible? Yes, it is. And that's what Intuiface will enable you to do. So I'm going to walk through sort of what we see as the challenges for creating interactive digital content in museums, and then map it to Intuiface. Why Intuiface? Why is this interesting? Why is this perhaps better than outsourcing or writing code, if you even have that skill in-house, spending a lot of money in outsourcing? Is this really a good way, a better way than what you're used to doing? So let's go down that path. So we'll start looking at the challenges. We will then map why Intuiface is so good at addressing these challenges that we believe you're facing when trying to deliver new, modern, engaging, interactive exhibits for your museums. And then I will show you some examples and even a little product demo. Not super comprehensive, but just give you a taste of how it works, because it's kind of magical. A little biased, but it's a little magical. So let's start with the challenges. Here's what we've seen. As I said, we have tons of museum customers, and we've had museum customers for years. So we've been seeing what these museums have been going through, why they're looking at software like ours, and why they found it useful, so we can reverse engineer and identify lots of things that we think you're confronting and that we think Intuiface can help. And the first is maybe the most obvious one, which is limited budget. Because even if you have large endowments, those endowments have to go to lots of different things. If you want to create some modern, engaging, interactive exhibit, it's going to cost you a lot of money to outsource it. I probably don't have to tell most of you that. You're probably living it, at least in part or at least historically. And not only is it a limited budget, but then you're sort of constrained by their ability to accommodate your timeline. And so you need to plan way out. to make sure that things are delivered on time and at the level of quality that you expect, that's a big challenge. And then if you have a limited budget, then it limits who you can choose and what kind of control you have over that project. In the museum, the exhibit itself has a limited time to establish engagement. If you're building something very boring, I mean, I hate to stereotype, but the stereotypical interactive exhibit in a museum, it's a really old Windows 95, big simple button sort of thing. Particularly if you're trying to attract younger generations, it doesn't cut it. And ideally, your museum is so compelling, people want to come back, right? You want return visits. You don't want one and done. So how do you create these types of engagements that are sticky, that are interesting, that are compelling, where people want to say, hey, you should try this, or hey, let's go back, right? Another big challenge is trying to accommodate really a couple of things, a wide variety of interactive options. Touch is the obvious one, but museums want to innovate, and particularly if you're a science museum, some sort of education museum, there's almost a true incentive, a compulsion to be interesting, different, and unique. So you don't just limit yourself to touch. It could be sensors like motion, gestures where you use your hands to cause things to happen, voice where you're verbalizing what it is you want. It could be incorporating the use of visitors' mobile phones where somehow you're connecting their phone to that screen and enabling them to interact. There are many different, and there's other types of interactions too. All of these things will give you a much broader range of options for creating compelling content. But how do you accommodate that? I mean, it sounds impossible, right? You have to outsource, right? It seems that way. Same thing for a variety of displays and media players. There's multiple media players out there, operating systems, and types of displays. There's table-mounted displays, wall-mounted, maybe you need video screens. What about tablets? What about mobile devices? Different form factors, different operating systems, different hardware specifications. It's a nightmare of stuff. And you don't want to be bothered trying to figure that out, right? That's why you outsource, make it their problem, because this must be too confusing for you to worry about internally. What a headache. Language is another one. Now, not every museum needs to accommodate different languages, but others do. Certainly depends on the demographics of your city. Is there an incentive? Would it be beneficial to offer different languages? Well, that creates a whole other headache where you have to, make multiple versions of the experience and put in different languages. It just sounds like a huge challenge, right? You got to outsource. You got to do it. You have a website. You may very well be connecting your website to some digital archive. Maybe it's WordPress, something homegrown, some third party, but somehow you have some of your digital media related to all of your exhibits, all of your holdings. Maybe you're exposing them on the web. Wouldn't it be nice to connect that archive to the kiosks, to the wall-mounted displays, to the table-mounted kiosks in your museum as well? Some way to establish that connection between the cloud, between your back office, and what you're showing in the museum. You're not always going to have connections to the cloud, to outside the museum, but internally, so you don't have to have multiple versions of the same content, for example, one for the website and a separate instance of the exact same media for a kiosk. That would be a shame. So wouldn't it be nice if you could establish connections with those exhibits you're building digitally? Analytics. This is a big one, is learning from your deployments. What gets the most traffic in terms of content? What gets the most traffic in terms of location? What exhibits are getting the most traffic? For on the screen, what elements are getting the most interest? On what items do people spend the most time? On what items do they spend the least time? You can learn from these deployments to make better deployments, right? To fine-tune them, to improve them, to iterate, to, in an agile way, make improvements, tweak them, and roll them out, which you cannot do easily if you're outsourcing, right? If you want to tweak and you're outsourcing, a week at least, right? Lots of challenges for delivering interactive exhibits in a museum. So this sounds like a horror show. So how the heck can Intuiface help you compensate for these things? Let me check our time. Oh, beautiful. Time is good. Actually, let me see if there's a question. Let's see. Do I have any questions? Any questions? I know I'm on a roll. Okay, it's just people saying they hear me, which is great. Thank you. All right, so is it even possible for Intuiface to help you overcome these challenges? What the heck is it? And how does it enable you to be aggressive, to be proactive in delivering interactive exhibits? Well, first of all, big picture. Intuiface is an amalgam of three really core strengths. First of all, we're very much about the no-code movement, where you can create essentially applications, but not have to know how to write code. This is not just traditional digital signage, where you have like an image on the screen. No, no, no. There's interaction, there's processing, there's communication with the cloud. These are applications, but you don't have to write code. If I'm using my Nest thermostat and I'm telling it, well, on Tuesday, I want the heat on this at this time and at this time, that's programming. Okay? Everybody's programming with your Nest thermostat or your, what are those light bulbs, the Philips light bulbs? Everybody's programming. You always code it. Don't have to code with Intuiface, but you're building applications. The second is, well, we did suck in all the things you need to do for traditional signage. And if you're thinking about interactive exhibits in your museum, you're wondering what the heck digital signage has to do with it. Digital media on a screen meant to deliver a message, to inform, to motivate, to engage, to educate. The digital signage world is right there. And a lot of what the digital signage community has developed for that domain is very relevant for kiosks as well, such as remote deployment, such as analytics. So we enable you to create applications without writing code, but have all the best of a traditional digital signage company to enable you to very easily deploy, monitor, and manage those deployments. And then we threw in our unique insight. And that's really, in particular, interactivity. The first version of Intuiface shipped over 10 years ago. We've been doing this a long time. We're on version 7 point something. Very mature product with years of research and development, customer feedback, customer criticism, and even the occasional bug fix. And among those customers over all these years are many, many, many museums who have decided we are the best option, not outsourcing, not writing their own code, not giving up, but using Intuiface. Let me break it down in a little more detail. Keep those challenges in mind and how this might map to those challenges and help you overcome it. Well, the first thing, as I said, no code. Well, what does it mean, no code? How do we do it? Well, first of all, it's drag and drop. Think of it like Legos. And I'm going to show you a little demo. I told you that, so be patient. I'm going to show you a little demo. But think of Legos, right? There's a finite number of pieces that you can combine in an infinite number of ways. Intuiface is kind of the same thing. You have a set of building blocks. You can drag and drop them. You can assign media. You control every single pixel of that design. It is not constrained by templates. You can make your own templates if that's relevant for your museum. But our business is not pre-building templates. In that case, it's not like traditional digital signage at all. We don't have a library of templates. You control every single pixel. Any kind of media, any kind of layout, any kind of storyboard, it's your story. It's your pitch. It's your lesson. Anything you want with your images, videos, documents, 3D models, websites, audio files. You can incorporate all these different kinds of media, arrange them however you wish, tell any kind of story, and it's all interactive. By interactive, we said touch, sensor, gesture, voice, computer vision, mobile devices to remotely control, QR codes to put things on mobile devices. Many different ways of interacting with media on the screen. Doesn't have to be touch. Used to be during COVID, people thought touch was dead, which is, of course, that's not. Otherwise, you're never touching an elevator button and a doorknob. Touch is not dead. Touch will always be there. But there are other things you can do just to make it interesting, to make it compelling, where you're using sensors to cause things to happen, where it's motion, for example, or gestures, where you're doing things with your hands to make things happen. Intuiface supports real-time integrations with cloud-hosted services and peripherals. Remember I talked to you about, wouldn't it be nice to connect to the back office, to your digital archive, to the same resource that may be like WordPress? Wouldn't that be nice? Intuiface can do that. In fact, not only can it do that, but if your back office system, if your archive database has a web API, and you may not know what that means, but some of you do, but as a web API, you can build an integration automatically using something we call API Explorer. There's a tool in Intuiface that automatically creates integrations with web APIs. Automatic. Read from it, write to it. It's a real-time dynamic integration. It's not a snapshot, which means you can grab anything from that back office and pull it into the experience in real time. And or push stuff out, write to it, or turn the room lights off, or play some music, or who knows. I mean, anything accessible to the device with a web API can be incorporated in your experience. And it could be just content, data, or it could be actual activities like working with peripherals, where somebody is scanning a barcode, for example, or you want to send something to a printer. These peripherals can also be incorporated. All of this can be done with Intuiface. This thing's sounding pretty amazing. Analytics is a big part of Intuiface. Now, the thing is, you don't have to do it. It's like driving at night with your lights off. You could do that. Not a good idea, but you could. Analytics are the lights on a dark night. It illuminates what you need to know to get to where you're going, to give you feedback about the effectiveness of your deployments, and to learn from it, where the traffic is, the dwell time, that sort of thing. Built into Intuiface is both data collection and visualization, both. Data collection could be for any event, any kind of event. If a button is pressed, if a person is detected, if it's 5 o'clock on a Tuesday, it doesn't matter. Any kind of event can lead to data collection, which you can then export. You don't have to use our visualization, or you use our visualization. You build charts, you publish them to dashboards, you view those dashboards on the cloud, you send them to your board of directors, whoever, so they can see these results. It's all built in. So you can turn those lights on and not operate in the dark. Finally, Intuiface runs on multiple operating systems. For devices, it's really agnostic. I mean, it really doesn't matter who makes the display. It doesn't matter. All that matters is the operating system, but check out that list. I mean, it's just about every popular operating system on the planet. Windows, Android, Bright Sign, Tizen from Samsung, iPad OS, Apple, Chrome OS, Raspberry Pi, and you can even deploy to the web. You can run it in venue, on a kiosk, on a wall-mounted display, on a tabletop display, on a video wall. You can run it in your venue on any of these operating systems, and even publish it to the web. You could embed it in your own website. It could be just part of some page on your museum's website. It could be a dedicated site. That's up to you. You don't have to know how to write code. It just works. So hopefully you can see how this sort of maps to the challenges we discussed earlier. It is meant to be used by non-technical teams. If you're technical, great, you'll learn it faster. But it's meant to be used by non-technical teams. It's only a license cost. We're not a professional services company. We're not stealth services. We exist to build, sell, and support our software so you can be successful. So you can use Intuiface to create exhibits for your museum, just like all those other museums have done that I showed you earlier. This is perfect for you. So let me do the demo first. Let me show you a little bit before. I don't need glasses. I'm just doing this because I think it makes me look like I know what I'm talking about. So again, just a reminder, if you have any questions, use that questions panel in the GoToWebinar toolbar. I don't see any questions, so I think we're okay. Okay, I think we're good. All right, so let me go to Composer. Composer is the editor. There are lots of tools in the Intuiface family. Most of the magic happens in Composer. This is where you create that interactive content. This is where the Lego blocks are. This is where you drag and drop and create those visuals using your media, okay? We have a runtime called Player. We have our own content management system called Headless CMS. We have our own analytics solution. I told you, we call it Analytics because that's a great name. Well, let me show you a little bit of Composer because this is the magic. First, let me play. I'm clicking that little triangle at the top there. This is how I'm testing my work. Okay, so we have some sort of Vincent van Gogh exhibit. We have 4 menu items, and I see a couple of flags there. I assume that's for language. Let me click biography. A little bit of a biography. I'll see that there's a book here where I can turn the pages. There is a video playing. It is something I can manipulate and rotate if I want, and just some eye-catching. So we call it the Ken Burns effect. That slow pan and zoom sort of thing. All right, that's cool. If I go to artwork, all right, a little bit of a gallery. I can interact with this gallery. And everybody knows this puppy, right? Let me click that. That's the Starry Night, 1889. Beautiful. On the museum tab, okay, this is just telling me how to get there. Now, we support interactive maps, both from Microsoft and Bing. Well, you can't use it without a credential key. You would see this if you try to use the map. That's why I left it there. But it's an interactive map, and you can zoom in and zoom out of that map, and even put points of interest on there if you want, interactive points of interest. So, okay, thank you for showing me where I am. Remember, this could be on the web, so maybe you want to put that in the experience. And then we have this 3D model here, which is just kind of glorious to look at. I don't know how good the share is, but this is pretty awesome. And this is a 3D rendering of one of Van Gogh's paintings, or Van Gogh, as they say. But I sound like a dummy when I do it. So about these flags, by the way, there's the English flag. Well, technically it's UK. But if I click the French flag, yeah, we get some French here. Oh, and if I see the work here, and I pick Starry Night, no, now it's La Nuit Étoilée. I think that's. So I have a language variation as well. So this was built in Intuiface. Didn't outsource it. I don't want to overstate the case, but this is not hard to build. I always like describing Intuiface in terms of crawl, walk, and run. There are things so easy, it's like crawling. You're doing this in an hour, in a day. Then there's walking, so you have to crawl for a little while, but it's not that much. And then running is, you can do some unbelievable stuff with Intuiface, but it's running. This is sort of the crawl, walk border. It's not 1 hour. It's not. 1 day of diligent work, maybe. I mean, let's look at a couple things here, and I'll go to the artwork scene. So there's a couple things to focus on. This menu, biography, artwork, museum, and 3D. If you look on the left, it's actually coming from a data source. It's coming from outside of Intuiface. Now, you have choices when you're using Composer. I could have put the word biography here, and artwork here, and museum here, and 3D here. Actually, so see this right here? I just clicked the little face. That is what we call a toggle button, but you can assign an image to the button. Okay, and I know it is because look on the left. You see in the scene structure panel on the left? When I selected that image, this row highlighted in the scene structure panel, there's a one-to-one correspondence. So that home thing on the left is that button. If you look on the right, there's the properties of that home button, which has various aspects to it. Okay, and staying here on the left, see the little lightning bolt? When that button is checked, when it's tapped, then it goes to the scene called home. That's the programming, okay? When this button is checked, it's a toggle button, so it has checked and unchecked. So checked, then navigate to the scene called home. The scene called home, see it at the top? Navigate to the scene called home. I could have done that here. A biography, the text word biography and artwork, and I could say when the word biography is tapped, then go to the biography scene. But instead, we're pulling it from our CMS. We're saying for every instance, I'm not going to teach you the CMS, but check this out. For every item in our headless content management system, create an instance in that experience. That's where the walk kind of is. I'm not expecting you to fully understand it. What I want you to understand is you don't have to decide in advance what you want to call these things. what you're essentially looking at here is a template, and it's saying whatever you put in the headless CMS, show it here, which means if I changed it here and publish those changes, it would show up in the running experience. I wouldn't even have to stop the experience. Just as it's running, it's going to say, oh, there's a new name for this menu item, and it's going to put it on screen. It's the same thing with this artwork in this asset flow. If you remember, I was swiping through the asset flow. Well, look on the left. You're already getting a feel, right? If I select something on the right, you can see it on the left. Look on the left, scene structure, asset flow. I know my product, this little line here, this little node means it's sucking in information from some external resource. And it is also this CMS base. In fact, it's this particular collection. So what Composer is saying, for every item in the base, add a new image. Okay? And there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 images. There's a picture and there's a title. Oh, by the way, check it out. See language, English, French. Now you got the French title. That little red language thing, that's actually not a feature for languages. It's a generic thing we call a variant. And a language is one example of using a variant. A variant means that some things change and some things don't. In this case, the artwork picture doesn't change. It doesn't matter what language you're using. It's the same picture, but the title will change. So it's a variant. It's a very easy way to manage certain kinds of changes depending on the context. The people using the headless CMS, this thing, don't even have to know what the UI looks like in Composer. It could be somebody that's never seen Composer in their life. On this side, again, it's sort of a template. You don't have to decide in advance what images you want to show. You can just say whatever is up in the CMS, that's what you need to show. And you don't have to restart the experience when you make changes. What we're doing with our CMS, you can do with anything with a web API. You don't have to use our CMS. You don't. It could be your WordPress database. It could be your back office system. It could be anything. It has an API. We can talk to it. We can read from it. We can write to it. In this case, we're reading from our headless CMS. We could be reading from your back office system dynamically. Or don't do it at all. It can all be static, and it's just buried in the experience, and nothing is external. You can do that too. And in fact, if you're working in an environment that may not have a good network connection, maybe it's a good thing. You're going to be offline. Everything needs to be local. So that's a very quick, high-level look at the freedom you have to develop scenarios and visualizations to educate, to inform, to motivate, to engage, what have you. Let's go back. Tons of resources on the web to help you understand the nuances, the details. There's an Academy course. There is a 400 article online library. There's 100 free sample experiences you can download. There's tons of things you can do to self-educate. You can see this giant interactive display at an aquarium. Here we have, let's see, we have some wall-mounted, and there's some audio aspects to this too that's, I think, coming up in the video. One of these things does. But so you can walking through some of your exhibits. On the bottom left, this is more of just having fun. Somebody is using our drawing tools to create their own picture, maybe that's suitable for the exhibit. And I won't even play, but you can see this is sort of playing with a timeline at the bottom. See the timeline? You can swipe through history and select items and zoom in on them, etc. All of these videos are on our website, by the way. We have something called Intuiface. So on our website, you can see the URL, intuiface.intuiface.com, where we identify a set of verticals where we see a lot of interactive opportunity. Take a look in the upper left, see museum right there. If you go to Intuiface and you select museum, you're going to see multiple use cases. And for each use case, it'll tell you what it's about, how you would build it with Intuiface, and then if they're available, either a sample experience, some videos, or both. So it's a great way to kind of educate yourself on the kinds of things you can build. However, check out another vertical, because just because it's workplace doesn't mean they're not doing something that could be interesting in a museum, right? It's for a completely different purpose, but you like the visual, you like the storytelling aspect of it. So really have fun with it. I'm mindful of the time. We scheduled this for 30 minutes. I'm going to stop here, see if there's any questions. So please use that GoToWebinar toolbar to ask those questions. In the meantime, let me go to the browser here, and I'll pull up our website so you can see a couple of things. First of all, if you want to try it, right on the home page, see Start Free Trial. Let me make that bigger. No credit card required, 28 days, 100% of capability. Build anything you want. Use all of our resources, including technical support. All for free, 28 days. There's nothing to stop you. Under resources, see that at the top of the website, resources, multiple courses in an online academy, all for free during the trial. Lots of pre-recorded webinars, kind of like this, but there's a couple of them that go into great detail about various aspects of the product. Free, you can watch that. Over 400 articles in an online library that we update daily. Super comprehensive, great search engine, everything you could possibly want to know. Free sample experiences, 100 free samples in Composer. In fact, if I go to the File menu and Show Experiences panel, when you start your trial and you run Composer, you're going to see this tab called Examples. All of these things can be downloaded into Composer. And you can think of them sort of as open source, meaning you can see how they were built. You can use them as a template. You can steal from them. You can, try to reproduce them, anything you want. Back to the website. By the way, the documentation does include a hands-on tutorial, so you can build stuff yourself. There's a support team, with very smart people that were ready to answer your questions. Just tons of resources to enable you to have a very successful trial, build some truly amazing stuff. Let me go back. There is one question here. Good question. So the question was, I mentioned using a phone to interact with the screen. How the heck does that work? Well, we have something in Intuiface called web triggers, which essentially means a message initiates in one place, and there's another thing always listening for that message, okay? An Intuiface experience can listen for web triggers, okay? An Intuiface experience can also send web triggers. In fact, web triggers is not something we invented. There are services completely independent of us using web triggers. It's a common means of communication between independent applications. But Intuiface experiences can send triggers, and Intuiface experiences can receive them. So you can build an experience that runs on a mobile phone. Maybe you have an exhibit in a museum, QR code, person scans the code, loads a little web page, but it's an Intuiface experience, and it lets you maybe say next and previous. And when they touch the next button, what the button is actually doing is sending a web trigger that says somebody just touched the next button. And the experience on the kiosk is listening for these messages. Says, oh, I just got a next web trigger, so I'm going to go to the next item in the scene. So the only thing that's necessary is some sort of network connection between the two. It doesn't have to be the cloud. It could be in-house, but some means of communication. Well, web triggers might have to be public. I got to get back to you on that. But it's using that web triggers mechanism to facilitate the communication, which is why it's so beautiful that you can write experiences that don't just run on the kiosk, but run on the phone. So you can build simple experiences. It's for a very broad type of audience. You can't have something too complicated, but some experience that they can put on their phone. It's a web page, and whatever they do on that phone becomes a message, a trigger, an event that causes something to happen in the experience running on another device. I hope that's clear. Other questions? Anybody? This has been recorded, so I will get this out to you when we're finished. I have also been asked about the pricing structure. Well, here's the beauty of Intuiface is we are not shy. If you click pricing, there is our pricing structure. Okay. Every account needs one plan, not multiple plans, not one per exhibit, one per experience, one per person. You just need one, only single one. That's it. One of these three, Essential, Premier, Enterprise. The tiers sort of determine the level of capability you have across all of the products. Of particular interest with Enterprise is remote deployment. I'm here, I make changes to an experience here in Composer, and I want the experience running over there. If I have a network connection, I can remotely deploy to that device. Very critical for large networks, critical for very spread out displays. Got to have enterprise for that. So that's usually the main reason for enterprise. So you just need one, only one, once a year. That's it. And then you have player, which is the runtime that runs on the devices, on those kiosks, the wall-mounted displays, the tables, the video walls. You need one per media player, essentially. And you can see the list price here. We do differentiate between player and non-interactive player. If it's acting like a sign, you can get the non-interactive player, which is half the price. Typically, if it involves touch or gesture or sensor, okay, then you need the regular player. That's list price. The more you buy, there are volume discounts, but that is list price. And that's it. You need one platform annually, and then you need as many players as you have devices in the field. It's a very predictable licensing model because that's it. There's nothing else to purchase. So I hope that answered your question. We are on a Mac. Is there a Mac version planned in the future? What I would say is there is a web version planned in the future, but it's in the future. So don't buy us because you think it's coming on the Mac anytime soon. We have developers using Parallels. If you have a decently spec'd machine, it should sing like a bird. It shouldn't be a problem. But to be native, what's really going to happen ultimately is that Composer will be on the web, in which case it doesn't matter what device you're on. By the way, we're not on the Mac because Steve Jobs was pretty anti-touch. If you couldn't hold it, he didn't want it. I mean, it is no surprise that there's pretty much no touch screens for Macs, right? It's just not what they do. They do phones and tablets. They don't do displays. So from a very early day, we've been Windows all the way because Windows supported touchscreens. So that's the reason in terms of history. But when we're on the web, which you should not wait for, don't. If you're happy with Parallels, great. If you just refuse to use anything but Mac, well, it's going to be a little while. But eventually we'll be on the web. Any other questions, folks? We will follow up, as I said, with the recording. This will be on YouTube, actually, but we'll go public with this, but we'll make sure you get it. And, of course, we can always take your questions, but you might just want to start trying it out. You don't need us to try it out. You don't need to be bothered by anybody in our team. Start the trial, no credit card. Start the trial, download Composer, start building stuff, start deploying it, play with it, try your headless CMS if you want. We didn't even look at it in analytics in the product. Try that. And there's lessons about it, courses, everything available for you to learn. All right. I think it looks like the questions have dried up, so I want to thank everybody for your time and attention. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope it was informative. I hope you understand why Intuiface is interesting, why we came to you in the first place. We think it's a very compelling solution for museums. Maybe museums is the best vertical for Intuiface. It might be. Please try it out. Let us know what you think and have a great day. Thanks, everybody.